All right. So, I wanted to say something different at the start of this recording, and I couldn't think of anything. Oh well.
Oh, well, that's different.
True, it is still different. It's just slightly like unprofessional, kind of in style. It's like you just sound like an idiot.
That is exactly what happened. We just made that noise.
It was close enough.
Yeah.
All right. So we should mention for this recording that there might be a few tiny audio hiccups on Lewis's end because his microphone's being a bit of a shitlord. So
Yeah.
there might be some crackles and shit here and there, basically. So we're gonna hope it doesn't happen. We're doing what we can to make sure it doesn't happen, but there is a possibility. So just to let people know ahead of time if crackles start happening.
Yeah. Well, if any people watching really like Rice Krispies, then well, you're going to get plenty of snap, crackle, and pop on this podcast.
You'll get real hungry as you listen to this.
Yeah. Be really getting those. I don't know. I don't really have any good Rice Krispies jokes.
Are there Rice Krispies jokes? Is there a genre of comedy called Rice Krispies?
I'm sure there will be. Like, there probably is like a comedy trio out there called Snap, Crackle, and Pop. So
wouldn't surprise me. What if wouldn't that could also be a band? Snap, Crackle, and Pop.
I think there's the kind of there's that one joke about like drugs and shit where it's like crack, smackle, and pot. I don't know what crackle is. I think smackle's a drug, but yeah.
Wow. Do you think Rice Krispies trademark Snap, Crackle, Pop?
Well, in that sequence, I'd imagine, like that kind of like phrase, if you will.
Yeah.
Because like individual words, I don't think that's a thing, but that kind of like I think they kind of made it a phrase, so they did like trademark that. Yeah.
Well, obviously they can't trademark the individual words. That's way too broad. It would never get approved. It's just the phrase, like I'm saying, yeah. So people wouldn't be able to call themselves Snap, Crackle, Pop. So yeah, I would imagine it'd be trademarked, that phrase.
Oh yeah, sure. Maybe if they actually just like do or like different, I guess, store brand alterations of it. Like it would be like but I can't think of what are they called.
Isn't Rice Krispies part of Kellogg's or something?
Is that it? I don't know.
I think Rice Krispies are part of Kellogg.
Yeah. Wait, are they? Yeah, no, they are. Yeah.
Yeah, they just have the bars that they did it as an offshoot because people like Rice Krispies.
So.
Anyways, we're supposed to talk about anime, so.
Yep.
We should probably get into that, especially because we have 2 episodes to cover for Kabaneri since we didn't do it last week since we had to record early.
Yeah.
So, normally when we cover double episodes, we sort of cover them at the same time, but I think just because of how different these episodes are, I think we should cover both Kabaneri episodes separately. So,
okay.
The first episode we'll cover is the one that we didn't cover last week, where they go to the town and then stuff happens in there. So, what did you think of that episode of Kabaneri, Lewis?
It was just a down low episode, really. Like, it was just... I want to see more of Kurisu and Ayame, because they're like the only 2 characters I still wholeheartedly enjoy in the show. Other than that, it was... ideas got developed, I guess. Biba, whatever his face, Marmoriano voices him. He got introduced finally, so that entire Master Hunter guy that we've all been kind of wondering who the hell is ordering Mume around is finally revealed. Even though I wasn't really wondering it, it was just kind of like, oh yeah, that dude, he was in the OP. But other than that, it was a pretty down low episode. Drama was there. I think like the only thing that really kind of stuck out for me was that kind of altercation within the repairman shop, I guess, between that random stranger who wanted his gun repaired. That is like the only thing that stood out for me. And Kurisu writing his wish on the for Tatakana, I think it is. No, Tata. Someone will correct me. And that, yeah, it wasn't really a very standout episode for me. It was just kind of,
That's funny, because I'd actually say that last week's episode of Kabaneri is probably, like, the best episode the show's put out so far.
Yeah.
If anything, because it was low-key. They finally took the time to, like, stop and we gotta look at the characters. And it was actually, surprise, surprise, funny. Like, there was the scene where Ayame, like, intentionally funny, like, not unintentionally funny. Like, the scene where Ayame is, like, getting stood up at the meal, you know, and, like, the guy's not showing up and they're just kind of sitting there, you know, the guards are kind of talking about it, and they're just like, you know, oh, you know, they don't have any respect, they're not going to show up, this is bullshit, you know, and they're, like, going to tell her to go, and then she's, like, sneaking some of the food because she's hungry, you know, it's, like... There was actually some humor, and we got to, like, know more about the characters. Like, I was saying before, I didn't care as much about Ayame as I think you did, because she didn't feel like much of a character to me. She was just sort of like the person who does the right thing, so you cheer for them because everyone else is a fucking idiot.
Yeah.
But this scene actually, like, humanized her a bit, and, like, through comedy, and, like, I actually like her now. And then stuff in the next episode also helped a little bit, but we'll get to that when we cover that episode. I'm not sure how I feel about the standoff with the scene of Ikoma, because it was more of Ikoma being angry at people doing things, but it served more of a purpose in this episode, or in that episode, because, like, it was, again, about the whole hierarchy thing, about them not giving a shit about, you know, the workers, like, fuck them, who gives a shit, and then the fact that, like, after it's done, he just goes right back to talking to the shopkeeper. He's like, so, you want to talk about this? It was more about, like, it kind of gave Ikoma some passion about, like, you know, he just wanted to have the fucking conversation with the shop owner, man. Like, he wanted to talk about the fucking cool shit he makes. So, like, there was a bit there. I think, if anything, the one thing I actually didn't like about the episode, which was actually kind of a big deal for me, was that Mume has done the fastest 180 I've ever seen. Like, we went from an episode of her talking about how only the strong survive and the weak can die, and I know Ikoma said his thing, but it's only been, like, as far as, like, actual time, if you played the episodes back to back, like, 7 minutes since that happened. And now all of a sudden she's this, like, bubbly, happy girl all of a sudden. And it's like, where the fuck did this come from? It's just, like, so fucking fast. Like, it makes sense, again, when we cover the more recent episode a little bit. Like, that change would make more sense. But in this episode, she's just in town and she's happy and wants to know about all this past stuff. And, like, she's almost a completely different character. And I can't... Yeah. And I feel like the only reason they did it is, again, to make her more appealing to people. Like, originally she was being sold on the badass factor, and now they want her to be cutesy, so that, like, people like her even more. So, that kind of annoyed me, but otherwise I actually liked the episode quite a bit. It was probably, like I said, the best episode Kabaneri put out so far. Like, it was actually interesting. We got to learn more about each individual character as we followed them doing their tasks around town, and have fleshed them out, which is something we kind of fucking needed. You know, 5 episodes ago, but I guess we could take it now. So, yeah. I mean, was there anything else about the episode, the last week's you wanted to mention?
Like, Mume is just, it seems to be kind of like, they're, I'm not necessarily saying they're projecting themselves onto Mume and just kind of writing whatever the fuck they want to do, but she certainly has this sort of, erratic, sort of, writing to her, where she can just seem to be whatever she likes to be. Like, she can have what sort of demeanor she wants to do each episode, you know, depending on what the character's doing. Like, depending on the environment around her, she seems to change. Like, if there's a sort of depressing atmosphere going on, or, you know, she'll be a lot more broody and just very grim dark. Whereas this episode, or last episode even, if there was, like, a lot more of a cheerful atmosphere, she'd be a lot more happy. I think that's just more of for her to be kind of, I don't know, to win over the audience, rather than, her just being kind of like, her, like, sort of emotions are, like, being changed via osmosis. So, really, it's just kind of proven to me that, like, they're just kind of doing whatever the fuck they want with Mume, rather than just having a little plan out for all the way through. Because all the other characters seem to have, like, a very set course of action when it comes to these sort of situations. You know, Aime is always calm and collective, and behind closed doors, she's a person, human being that is not shown to many other people. Ikuma is still a smithy at heart that is very passionate about engineering and whatnot. Mume is just she's bubbly, and she's also angry a lot of the time, but she's also not. She's mysterious, but then she's willing to say everything about her past in a drop of a coin. And I don't really understand. Well, I actually kind of understand what they're trying to do with Mume. I don't like what they're doing with Mume. It's not that, well, I guess I don't really like Mume, because, like, I do audibly groan, and there were moments in the next episode in particular where I did, like, just, like, groan out loud, and just after seeing her actions. Not because, like, you know, they're intentionally annoying me, as in, like, that's what they're trying to achieve, you know? Yeah, she's angering everyone. It's just, like, she's just, her actions are just so random, I guess. Like, they seem to just change and adapt to a situation depending on what the writers kind of want it to be, rather than how she would react to that situation. And it really, really, really annoys me when I see that.
Yeah, it definitely feels like her characterization's inconsistent in a way that's unintentional. Parts of it seem to be, like, kind of intentional, like you mentioned, she's supposed to be kind of mysterious, and some of, like, these switches in attitude can kind of be in favor of that. But a lot of the time, it just sort of feels like they're doing whatever the fuck they need at the time, or whatever they feel like she should be at the time, and without any real thought on consistency. It sort of feels like Mume, in a regard, is kind of like being thought up as they go along, for the most part. Like, they didn't really have a solid character bio for her starting the show, as opposed to everyone else. And then, I mean, there's obvious problems with betrayal, regardless. Like, the other characters still had issues with betrayal up until last week's episode, as far as, like, being able to get a grasp on their character. Although we'll get, again, a bit more into characters themselves in the more recent episode. But yeah, I definitely agree with you on Mume. Just, she's trying to appeal in, like, every way they can think of. I kind of feel like
Yeah.
like, the beginning was, you know, her being crazy cool, badass, you know, the cool fighter, you know, the kind of edgy character that's away from everyone else, but, like, kicks ass. And then, like, the Solon character was, like, you know, kind of like they're tragic in a way, and now she's, like, the bubbly character. It's like they're trying to hit, like, all the fucking character beats with Mume. And part of it is just because of how fast, like, up until this point, the show hasn't been moving that fast. We'll cover the more recent episode, like I said, in a bit, but the show hasn't been moving very fast. But Mume's characterization has felt fast regardless, because she's flipping through all these different character emotions so fucking quickly, where it feels like something bigger should happen before she does any changes. So it just feels, like, rushed and not really well thought out.
Yeah, because it's kind of strange when you compare it to, like, the rest of the cast, because they while not being, like, you know, the epitome of fantastic writing, they're consistent. They you know, they don't act. There hasn't been really a point in the show where they've seemed to act out of their own line, and everything they've done so far has been, like, within their sort of I guess hemisphere of how they would act. Whereas Mume has just been kind of, like, all over the place, really, depending on what they want to do with her. They will do it rather than what she will do, which is frustrating mainly to watch. The only real thing I can probably think of where a character's been inconsistent is, I don't know, maybe Ikuma at the start, where he was just kind of trying to accept that he was a Kabaneri and fighting against all these Kabaneri, but, like, that isn't really much to really complain at, because it's just strange that, like, they don't really have that much planned out for Mume, even though they seem to be going for that she's going to be, like, a very super important main character, yet they don't really have any idea of where she's going. To me, anyways, that's what it seems like, that what's going down. But maybe now that we're onto this sort of, I guess, arc with Biba, I don't know, something.
Isn't he just called like BB or something?
BB. It's a B followed by a vowel, anyways. So maybe now she'll be a lot more consistent with his influence there. Maybe. I don't know. I'm not holding out any like hope for, you know, consistency within Kabaneri's writing, but yeah, the last episode was a needed one. It was definitely needed when it came to, well, as you said, humanize the characters. I guess the main reason why it just didn't really stand out, other than like for a moment or two, was just because Mume was just frustrating to watch for all of it. Like she was just a big old mess, really, and it just kind of made me she overshadowed the rest of the episode for me, which is kind of sad, because the interactions with Aime and Kurisu and Ikuma, they're all very, very great and fun to watch. Just Mume has been kind of that drain on the show that has just really sucked out all the energy from me to watch it, really, which is a shame.
Yeah, but we should probably move to the more recent episode before we spend too long on last week.
Yeah.
So does that cover about everything from last week you wanted to mention?
Yep, yeah, that's about it. Yeah.
All right, so now we'll move on to the more recent episode of Kabaneri that aired yesterday. So what did you think of this week's episode of Kabaneri, Lewis?
I'm glad that they are adding a villain character that isn't Kabane, because I think he's Kabaneri, though. They implied that it was Kabaneri. Yeah, it was, yeah. But I'm glad that they're kind of shifting focus away from that. The Kabane are the end boss of Kabaneri. So they're actually kind of shifting the focus of like, oh, this big hero guy is actually corrupt. I've seen it done millions of times before, but it's still nice that they're shifting the focus away from the Kabane, which is something which I would have been angry about at the first few episodes. But I think this is going to be a kind of an interesting way to show the true power they're kind of up against. Maybe they're going to go for like an overarching theme of, you know, humanity's real enemy here is humanity. Ooh. But it's still going to be interesting to see how they pull it off. And Biba, or BB, or whatever, he's been set up pretty well, I think. He's not. He definitely is just a very, very sinister guy that has been like that sort of like they haven't really I guess kind of like made it hidden. They made it obvious that he's obviously a bad guy. Like, they're not trying to hide that from us. So obviously they got a lot of stuff planned for him that's going to make him look super evil, and I think that is what's going to the fact that they obviously showed his intentions from the get-go. That's obviously going to bring in something with Mume, and it's going to be just of, you know, a fight to regain her good side and show that, yeah, this guy's a dick, Mume, come back to us, please. Even though they literally had that sort of kind of, that's what they were sort of going for at that like little scene there on top of the train. I forgot what word it was. The freight train, I think it was. You know, there was that sort of thing. Oh, come back to our side, Mume, and then she just completely outright disagreed with him and just went back to be Maru Miyano's character. And yeah, I'm really glad that they brought in him. As far as everything else in the episode, Mume was obviously it's kind of funny. I remember saying a few episodes ago that we were done with Mumei's arc. Like we somehow managed to finish what I thought was Mumei's arc, which was the was it 2 episodes ago? The episode before last week's, I think, which was I thought was it. But no, they're bringing it back. They're bringing it back, and they're bringing it back hard. Which is, I guess, good. It's kind of weird that like they're trying to portray Ikuma as the main character, even though Mumei's getting the center of attention of it all, which is fine, I guess. I would still like more development with with Ikuma and the rest of the characters, but maybe they're going to get more developed through this arc. I don't know. Also, I do not at all buy into the relationship of Ikuma and Mumei. I really do not understand why they are so close, why Ikuma wants to, wants Mumei just to fight for what's right, and she wants to go to her side. Like, to be honest, I would not be surprised if Ikuma was just like, fuck it, just do whatever you want, Mumei, just don't hurt our own kind, because the only real connection they have is that they're both Kabaneri. Mumei trained Ikuma, kinda. Other than that, she's been a dick to him. Like, I just do not buy into their relationship at all, which made the entire scene on the freight train just super frustrating to watch, really. Other than that, yeah, drama's been shit.
What's new, am I right? I agree with some of the things you mentioned, which I wasn't actually thinking of before I was going to talk about the episode. Like, you mentioned how Mamoru Miyano's character being in is kind of like focusing the shift of a danger off of the Kabaneri, or the Kabane, which I agree is a good thing. I mean, I feel like they've kind of been doing that in general, or maybe I just felt like they needed to do it after they've basically made the Kabane fucking useless the last 2 episodes, considering Mumei and Ikuma just mow them down. So they kind of had to switch it, but it's also kind of like in the sense of like The Walking Dead. Like, the zombies aren't like the main appeal or point of anything in The Walking Dead. It's the people being in the situation that they're in, given all the circumstances, and how they cope with that, and how that changes them as people, and those ideological conflicts that come as a result of all of that. Like, that's what's interesting about it, which is why having actual people be the villains, despite, all the fucking zombies running everywhere, is the main point in the idea, and something good to do. Getting too bogged down in the Kabane just turns it into like a generic monster show where it's just like people being badass and mowing down useless enemies. So it is good that they're focusing on a human villain right now. What else did you mention that I agree on? Mumei and Akuma's relationship. That's another that's like a major thing that I think we're both on the same page from, about how their relationship does not really make sense. Like, I get what they want the relationship to be at, and like they're selling it as if you're already at that point, like you already get the bond between them, but they like skipped all the middle ground. It's like in a key work when all the drama happens, but they forgot to like let you know about the character and the relationship between like whatever the character is and the main character, and so the drama happens and you're just like, okay, but why should I care? So it's in the same regard with Mumei and Akuma's relationship, where she's just really been a dick to him for the most part. And sure, he like kind of feels sorry for her after learning about her circumstances and why she thinks the way she does. So like at most I'd say like he feels that way because he's protective of her, like in a way, like he wants to help her out. And we know there's something about his sister. He kind of sees like his sister in Mumei, which we've like seen 2 fucking flashbacks about. So it's not extremely well done. So there's that kind of builds the relationship between them, but it almost, like you said, feels like there should be like this way deeper bond between them, which they could do just by both being Kabaneri, but they didn't really do that because, like I said, Mumei's just really been a dick to him while she's been training him. So there's really no bond there at all. And I have a feeling we can probably get into bonds between characters established quickly once we get into Bungo Stray Dogs a bit later. I imagine that's something we'll cover, so we can contrast it with Kabaneri in that regard. But yeah, I agree on that front. And as far as my general opinions on the episode of this week, it was bad. Like, it wasn't even just like in a sense of like the usual writing qualms I have, like that you've gone over for the most part, and I'll add a few. the episode just also felt bad from a production standpoint. Was it just me, or did it feel like an abridged episode? It felt like characters were going... This episode felt like it was going at a mile a minute. Like, it felt like everything was
Yeah.
going so fast. Like, characters from scene to scene were, like, teleporting all over the place. Was it just me?
Yeah, no, like there was some strange production qualities. I noticed they did use a lot of stills in when they were bringing out the hunters and that. Yeah, no, like I get what you're trying to say here, and I did certainly get that I guess feeling, so to speak, with it. It was strange, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what it was. I mean, I guess it was
Yeah.
those cuts like I mentioned, the characters going all over the place. Like in one scene, you see Ikoma mentioning like the thing about he senses the Kabane, and then like his buddy like is like talking to Ayame like a minute later, which I guess is a decent amount of time. But then it immediately swaps over to Ikoma and them like on top of the train and like another part of it. Like I feel like Mume did more teleporting in this episode than any of her fights with Kabane. Like
Yeah.
she went from like Mimuro Miyano's side to fucking Ikomo's side to Ayame. Like she teleported all over the place this episode, which was crazy. Like it's like obviously like you're allowed to like skip stuff in shows, but it felt like every scene there was a time skip in this. So it was just like not like a massive time skip, but like it just the pacing felt fast, which is fine in like, you know, if it's done in general in a show, but the pacing of Kabaneri so far has been pretty like, you know, laid back for the most part we've had so far. So it's almost feels like they realize they're running out of time and so they're trying to like rush. I think the problem is it feels indicative of a problem that's going to happen. It feels like the episodes from here on are gonna be this fast because they need to get through shit. So I think that's part of it. Outside of the weird pacing issue, the writing in general is like I said, just weird. I think a good way to summarize my thoughts on Ikoma, which was Ikoma got reset from last week's episode, so now he's like a bland slate again that I don't feel anything for. Ikoma, the way I could describe it is normally in shows, like, there's only so much characters could do because a plot's going on, so they usually have to work within the plot, whatever their choices are. But it doesn't feel like Ikoma actually ever does anything. Like, it feels like the plot's leading him by the nose, and he just sort of does what he should do at the time. Like, it's like, oh, the guy's a dick, let's talk to Mume and bring her back, which is the weird thing with the bond. And then there's like, it's hard to explain. It feels like Ikuma's dialogue could be interchanged with like literally anyone else. Like it just serves to progress the plot for the most part. It just, I don't know. Like Ikuma is a plot device when you come down to it. He's a fucking Kabane radar, and he's able to fight the Kabane without getting fucked up. And he's just like there to be a foil to Mume, who has like issues with her past. Like, when you think about it, Ikuma really is just a plot device. Like, he's just there to do specific things that are convenient for the plot. He's there to see things that other characters don't see. He's there to sense the Kabane when other people can't sense them. He's there to fight the Kabane because he can't get turned into a Kabane because he's Kabaneri. Like, Ikuma hasn't done anything unique to himself to really define himself as a character so far, which maybe will change now that we're getting into a decently sized conflict. But it's like, it's... I don't know. Yeah, it's... What else do I say? It's... I think I probably covered Ikuma as best as I probably could word it already. Yeah. So, outside of that, there was also... I'm not entirely on board with Mamoru Miyano's character. Like, it's kind of an issue with the writing where we kind of covered it, but it feels like they're making stuff up as they go along, in the sense of they think of a cool idea and how it works with like something they're doing, but then they don't consider how it doesn't work with other things that they're doing. So like, you know, the Mume's brother figure, Mamoru Miyano, like being a psychotic asshole can work in this story because of the setting, and like maybe he's gone through some shit. And it works as just a general kind of conflict because, again, you know, humans are actually the real problem, you know, not the Kabane, you know, because of the situation that molds them into monsters. They're the real monsters, blah, 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 that thing. But the problem with him being an asshole is that Mume is an idiot for siding with him. Like, there could be a genuine ideological conflict going on here. Like, if we had an episode where we got to see Mume hanging out with this guy, and maybe he did something dickish, but he explained it to her in a way that she bought into it, and so she's, like, somewhat on board with this ideology. She's uncomfortable with it, but she gets where he's coming from. You know, we got that sense of that bond between them. This episode could work really well for her not siding with Ikuma and such. But because all we've seen of this guy is him being a fucking asshole, and, like, even to the point where he stops even trying to hide it. Like, he straight up tells Mume they're gonna fucking kill everyone. Or they're gonna kill Ikuma if he comes into the ship, and then they need the fucking key, and it's like, it doesn't take a fucking genius to figure out he's gonna do something really shitty with the master key. Like, why is she siding with him? Like, there's no conflict here. Like, there's no, like, ideological conflict that they're supposed to be here. It's just Mume being a fucking moron for thinking that this guy has any, like, reasonable argument for doing the things he's doing and why she should be helping him. Like, and then you could, like, outside the ideological conflict, you could make it work as a bonding thing. Like, it's, you know, not a real brother, but she feels like he's her brother. So that could be the bond there that works. Although the problem is they're also trying to push the whole Ikome and Mume bond. So that conflicts with that. Along with the fact that we haven't seen anything between their bond. Flashback-wise, we've seen him throw a sword to her and tell her to man up, and also he turned her into a Kabaneri. And that's it. That's all we've seen of their bond in flashbacks. That's it. So we don't have this sense of a bond between them. We don't have this sense of her buying into his ideological shit other than just being a fucking puppet and mimicking what he says about the strong being strong and the weak can fuck themselves. So, like, all these ideas, like, this is Kabaneri in a nutshell. There are all these ideas that could work, but they just did not think them through enough to figure out how to make them work.
Yeah. What I guess this is kind of like my my way of just kind of like thinking my way through it and forcing myself to watch it, is that maybe there's some brainwashing shit going on here. Maybe. Because when I saw that, like, they were injecting shit into her that made her Kabaneri, maybe there's something in that made her just swear her allegiance to Mamoru character. Maybe. Maybe that's how he got his army of dudes, and why he's always been kind of seen alone in his own quarters, I guess, with the Kabaneri shit. I don't know. That could be a reason. I could just be just completely off base here with it. But yeah. Other than that, Mume is just kind of like, she's been holding on to the grasp of, well, not Mume, but like the writers themselves have been holding on to the grasp of what is family, I guess, and that family is what's strong, and family is what you need. They've been holding on to that with Mume, yet, which is kind of made her look bad, because since she thinks so well of her brother, quote unquote, she's willing to see past everything that he's been doing and willing to do, you know, his little mundane tasks. And like, oh, you didn't get the ASCII? Well, I guess we're going to kill this dude that you've been apparently having a real good relationship, apparently, with. Yeah, it just does not work in Mume's favor at all, because I feel, while I still have a lot of hope for Mamoru's character and what they're actually going to do with her, his entire presence is just bringing down Mume's character as a whole, really. Like, it's making her look stupid, it's making her not look as, like, I guess not look as strong, since doesn't have that kind of free will when he's around. You know, she had to ask him to, like, kill a Kabane. And she's really kind of becoming a shell of herself now that he's come around. Which I guess what they were going for was like, oh, you thought Mume was tough, well, wait till you see her mentor, huh? But what it's really done is made her look bad. It's kind of what they did earlier on in the show with Kabane. It was like, oh, Kabane are tough, but wait till they all hug together and become a massive Kabane. Like, they have that kind of tendency to like kind of when they one up a character or being, the thing that they're being one up just immediately loses all substance. It becomes completely without any I guess danger or threat really, which is a very very bad thing, because now Mume is just becoming, well, a tool really. Like, she's not necessarily becoming as much as like say a plot device as Ikuma is, but she is certainly not as capable, I guess that's the word I'm looking for. Like, she's not as like she's not able to do as much as she was able to in the previous shows due to the introduction of Maruyama's character. Obviously that's something that's going to be addressed about with that sort of kind of like mentor looking down on his student, but it's really affected Mume's character as a whole. Like, her character didn't have much to stand on in the first place. Now that we have this, it's going to just she's just going to lose all like substance really, I feel.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I was saying about, the whole Mamoru Mano's character is just like him in and of itself could work pretty well in like the show. It's just the things he does to the other characters like Mume that's causing the issue. The ideas that like work in regards to like one other thing they're doing in the show, but then like there are other stuff that they're doing that it just like conflicts with and like causes issues. So, and there's that regard. Should we also talk about how dumb the Kabaneri were this episode? Like, their designs? Like, was I the only one who thought the fucking one wearing the other Kabaneri, like, a wolf pelt was the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life?
I remember that. I was like, so did he, like, did he break their arms and, like, make a knot behind his neck or something? Or some shit like that. It was so weird to see that, yeah.
Is there like a Kabaneri tailor that like gets the dead bodies and like makes armor out of them?
Yeah, they have their own like little smithy as well. They make like their swords are probably made out of like the bones of Kabaneri as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, the wolf pelt Kabaneri with like the fucking like the fucking head like being in like its mouth was just like the dumbest thing I've ever seen. Like, I get that it was supposed to be a whole reference to the wolf pelt thing, but it just looks so fucking stupid. It was just, it didn't work.
Yeah, it was. Oh man, I did actually kind of laugh when I did see that. It was great.
Exactly. It was supposed to be intimidating. Instead, it was hilarious. Yeah. Again, issues with Kabaneri not knowing how to handle its tone at all.
Kabaneri, the funniest unfunniest show of the season.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Some great unintentional humor. Which is honestly kind of sad to see, because like I said, last week's episode was actually like had intentional humor that was actually pretty good, and now it's like we have this shit again.
Yeah. Oh well.
I wonder if a different person wrote last week's episode.
Like, yeah, it did really feel like that, because they actually felt like human beings, you know? Like,
I should look it up. I bet ANN has credits for who wrote each episode, or at least they will by the end of the show if they don't have it now. I would be curious to see if a different person wrote that episode, because if they did, God, they drew the fucking short straw being on that team.
Yeah. It shows how much prowess they have, you know? They're able to like work with, they made so much good out of what was essentially a pile of shit, so they really dressed that shit up, really. Good job with them.
Anyways, was that all about the episode you wanted to cover?
Yep. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's good, because that took longer than it should have. But that's okay. We probably won't take too long on the other episodes. There are episodes this week where, at least in my opinion, pretty quick to talk about, so hopefully we'll get through them quickly. But we should move on then to the next one, which is Hero Academia. So what did you think of this week's episode of Hero Academia, Lewis?
Yeah, the first half where it was essentially electing the was it student representative, class representative even?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Yeah, that just felt like a sort of, not necessarily a filler chapter in the manga, but it was just kind of like it was as close to filler as you can possibly get without being filler. which was fine because like it was a funny episode. Really, I really do enjoy Ida. Like just his just die good, be good all the time. Just be good. Nature is really really great to watch because he kind of like. I almost feel like he's a parody of those kind of like, you know, those heroes of like the bygone era of just, you know, eat your vitamins, go stay in school, don't do drugs, you know, those sort of heroes back in the day. Like it almost feels like he's a kind of parody of those. And I just really really love his entire character. So when they made the entire episode about him, I was just really, well, not the episode, but the first half of the episode about him, I was really happy to see that. Second half, well, yeah, it was. It's obviously just the start of probably the ending arc. I feel when it is just a big old clash of heroes versus villains, which is probably something which they were, which was probably the end goal of the entire series. I feel like it was just like we gotta have one big old fight versus, you know, with good and evil. They did a great job, I must admit. Like, I was super cynical of Academia at the start, but they did a great job of like establishing their characters and the side characters because, you know, they did even like passing conversations. Like when you compare it to this Kabaneri, the passing conversations they had, like even like shit when they were on the bus to get to the USJ, that conversation with the like frog girl, it really like brought them to life. And like if those were like to die off, I'd be kind of like, oh, that's kind of sad. And it really did just make a good job of actually humanizing them and make them feel like actual human beings behind there's actual people behind the quirks. It's also handy enough, well, not handy, but it's nice that they're distinct. They have like you know, they have, while they have like actual like power quirks, they have actual quirks to their characters, meaning like, you know, naval guy is fucking awesome. Frog girl is just kind of like that kind of snarky girl to her. Ida is the be good guy. Like they all have those sort of like personal like
they have personalities.
Quirks in them. Yeah. So like so like yeah, it was a good episode overall. They did a nice job of kind of like hinting towards the villains being trying to invade and actually get the heroes again with that sort of thing with the press earlier on in the episode. So yeah, good episode.
Yeah, that's a good comparison you mentioned about the bus scene bringing these characters to life as opposed to stuff that like Kabaneri's done, which is like it's another way to explain some of the things with Kabaneri is that like it doesn't feel like the characters in Kabaneri have any real like life to them. They're just sort of like doing what they need to do. Whereas, you know, you have the bus scene in Hero Academia where like all the characters are having fun, they're having conversations with each other, explaining, you know, and they're just having a conversation, but by the way they say the things they do, you learn more about them. Whereas I don't really learn about any of the characters in Kabaneri based on what they say because it's just generic, like, get things done dialogue, basically. Like, the people who've had the most, like, personality to them based on what they've said is the fucking, like, women characters who went out shopping that episode. Like, that was a good example.
Yeah.
But otherwise, like, the dialogue is just so, like, straightforward and to the point that there's barely... The side characters have more personality in Kabaneri than the main characters, but... Anyways, this is Hero Academia. It's, yeah, I agree. Definitely the first half of the episode, I agree, did feel a bit mundane. But it, like you said, it had Ida as the main focus, and he's lots of fun to watch, so that's cool. Actually, before I drop Kabaneri, something I should mention is, we mentioned, I think it was 2 episodes ago, Ikuma's VA was in it and was doing, like, the exact same voice. Ever since then, he's changed his voice. He actually doesn't sound like Ikuma anymore.
Like, yeah.
So I don't know what happened. Like, maybe someone realized, like, maybe someone watched, like, maybe Japanese fans on Twitter, like, were tweeting after the episode aired. They're like, lol, why is Ikuma in Boku Hero Academia, and then the staff was like, shit, and then they realized like how close it was, or maybe the VA realized he did it on accident, like he didn't realize what show he was recording for. So he I mean, he's doing a lot of fucking shit, so maybe he did forget which role he was fucking recording for. But yeah, ever since that first introduction of his voice, like he's actually changed his voice a lot, so now you actually can't recognize him as Ikuma unless you know ahead of time, I'd say. So that's actually kind of cool to see. But yeah, like Ida's great, so it was cool to see him do stuff. And otherwise, like the episode was largely straightforward. It was basically just get them to the place and then have the villains attack, which is kind of why we got the bus scene where we got to know more about people because now they're in danger. And so we'll see what happens from in that regard. And like I've kind of mentioned before, All Might is somewhat incapacitated. He's used his powers too much, so he can't help them. So yeah. But although something that's important to think of is that I don't know if it's a well-known thing among the villains that All Might has a time limit. So the fact that they were able to distract him like that, I'm assuming it was intentional distraction so that he would no longer have any time left. Why would they know? So there's a bit of a mystery there, or maybe I'm reading too much into it, and maybe the villains just know in general that he has a time limit. I don't know. Maybe it's just the public that doesn't. I know that the big secret is that he's transferring his powers. That's the thing, like he actually has to transfer his powers to keep it going, or like that's his real quirk. So that's the big secret, but I'm pretty sure like him having a time limit's also a good secret because he always runs away to hide it. So I don't know how much of a secret that part is. So the villains might actually know that. But yeah, otherwise it was like I said, it was just a like largely set up to get them to the place for the villains to attack. Pretty much, it's just set up for the next episode outside of learning a couple bits about characters, but. It was good. Like, there's nothing wrong with learning more about the characters, so it was great. And Naval Laser Guy actually had more than one line this episode, so that was great. So, yeah. I mean, not much else to say. Is there anything else you have to say about the episode?
No, really. Like, it was just a really fun episode to go. It was a nice kind of I guess joining episode, like kind of like kind of like. It was a nice sort of dying down from like the climax of like the last episode into like another kind of shit's gonna go down now, you gotta be prepared for this. So it was a nice sort of transitional episode, really. So yeah, it was fun. It was good.
Yeah, it was good. All right, so we should move on to the next show. Hopefully we don't spend too long on this, although I don't know if we'll be able to help ourselves. Is ReZero. So, what did you think of this week's episode of ReZero, Lewis?
Good. Yeah. It was. Where do I start? I don't know where to start. I'll start with fucking the Oni shit. So we all kind of knew that like shit was going down with the Onis and stuff. Like it was a kind of a constant theme with like, demons and crap are like actually a real thing, and it was always interesting. Rem. And then we actually saw that come out this episode, and well, they brought it out in probably the best way possible, really. It's the little things that the director does that have like a big impact. That scene where like she actually gets like she pushes Subaru out of the way and gets trampled by the I guess landslide almost. It was just pure silence, really. There's no even like effects where like her noise hit the ground, and then it just slightly transitioned into a like, oh Jesus Christ, she's dead. This loop was pointless, I guess. Now he's got to start over again, and then that sort of, something started happening, and it's like she stood up. I was like, something's actually really fucked up here. She came in Oni and fuck shit up. It was great. I really loved that scene, and they foreshadowed it well enough to tell you that something's up with her, but we don't know if it's like she's an actual demon or she's just, I don't know, she's cursed with some shit. I don't know. It was done really great. As far as the dog curse, I yeah, no, there's no problem with that. Like, there isn't really much to say about this episode because like it was an episode full of happenings rather than character interactions, which is what we've kind of discussed about a lot. The happenings being like, oh, Subaru found out who gave him the curse. Shit's going down with Rem. Children, yeah, children were there. Like, it showed again like Subaru's great attitude towards like, you know, he doesn't demand much from others, yet he will do so much for others. He, with everything, with his interactions with the children, like, it was a nice touch really when he kind of like did, like, he was going through the dreams of the children, despite Rem saying like, you don't know these people, why are you going so much to help them, which was really, really nice. Again, the slight interaction with Emilia and Subaru at the start of the episode as well, I think it was the start of the episode, as was really, really good. Even if it was just like a basic little like, oh well, good luck out there sort of thing, I just really, really enjoyed it. And Beatrice is really starting to show to be a I guess not necessarily underrated character, but just almost underappreciated character, because I just really started to take a liking for it this episode when she kind of like that sort of like moment where she was again just talking shit to Subaru, and then when she started came closer, there was like, oh shit, there is a curse here. Like, that's sort of like her change. She can just change tone instantly. I just really, really like that about her. Well, not the fact that she just changes tone, but like the way she gets this serious and was able to joke again. And she's just a really, really nice character. Other than that, you know, the show does a great job of building suspense and saying that like, we don't know where the curse came from, but when it tells you where the curse actually originated from, it's just like a big old slap in the face to you. It's like, yeah, obviously it would come from the dog. He bit him. Like, so yeah, it was a good episode, full of happenings. Next episode, I think it's a general theme to say this, so this isn't really an unsurprising comment, but next episode should be interesting.
Yeah, you did a very good job of covering the episode. I'd say my thoughts are pretty similar. I'd say the episode wasn't quite as strong as the last two episodes, but honestly, that's to be expected considering what the last two episodes covered. Considering there was a lot of build up for the inevitable crash of Subaru's character, so the fact that now that they've finished covering it, of course, this episode wasn't quite as strong, but that doesn't mean it wasn't, still great. You covered a lot of the aspects that made it really stand out. You mentioned the directing stuff having like impact with how stuff is portrayed, like which is something that was somewhat covered last week. I mentioned, which is how you make a show and how it's like seen by your audience are so different that it can be really hard to grasp. Like, when you're working on a show, you view your work in a very different way than someone who's just watching just the finished product. So like the way information is like relayed to people and the way they get impact through things is like can be really hard to do as a creator. But the director of ReZero has a really good grasp of that, which is, I guess this is going to be the week where I make comparisons to Kabaneri through every show of show doing something right that Kabaneri does wrong. But another example I remembered from Kabaneri when you mentioned the impact of the directing was the scene in Kabaneri where he has the two dudes like chained up next to the cabinet wall, and then the one guy's all like saying something like, don't hurt whoever, and then he shoots the guy. But it was like this far away shot, so it's just kind of like this awkward animation where he's just like, boom, and it's like, ah. Yeah. Whereas it would have been way more impactful if, say, there was a zoom up of his face as he, like, shot his head up and was like, don't harm him, blah, 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 and then the next thing you just see is his, like, fucking face exploding. Like, that would have been more impactful than just, like, awkwardly animated and art style from far away shot of guy getting shot in face. So, just an example of, like, ReZero knows how to do the impact directing and Kabaneri doesn't, but I'll lay off on Kabaneri until next show. Hopefully. Well, I already mentioned there's a comparison we can do with it next with Bungou Stray Dogs, but
oh yeah.
But yeah, with ReZero's episode, it was good. Something we haven't, I mean, we've mentioned it a little bit here and there, but we largely just kind of are used to it because we both like VA work so much, is that the VA work in ReZero has been like a triple plus. Like, seriously. Like, I mentioned when I talk about Tokyo Ghoul, and you sort of mentioned it too, is that, oh my god, am I seriously gonna forget?
Kaneki?
Hane Natsuki. Hane Natsuki's
Oh,
voice
that's
work
the
as Kaneki was like his magnum opus almost. Like it was a perfect fit. Like that shit was just like it could not have been a better choice. I feel like it's the same with ReZero, and I forgot to look up who's voicing him, but the voice actor for Subaru, like it's you'll probably look it up while I'm talking, but that is like it feels like there was literally no better choice. Like he's been doing not only does the voice like it's partial bias because the voice itself feels like it fits really well, but his performance has also been great. Like an easy example is like when shit gets fucked up when he gets killed by stuff, like his screams get really blood curdly. Like it fits really well. And then just during impact or in general scenes, whenever he's passionate about something, he's doing something, whenever he's having fun and being like silly, like it fits really well. Like his VA is doing a fucking incredible job as Subaru. Yeah. Like it was a perfect fit. And then also like Rem also had some great VA work this time when she went full fucking like I mentioned the thing before about Oni being both ogre and demon, and it turns out I was right on both ends. She's a demon ogre. So she her VA work when she went fucking crazy from that was also great. So it's like again, like the VA work was part of the directing having impact. Like not only was she murdering these things, but her VA delivery on all the lines was fucking great. And the music having like the ominous chanting help too. Like there's so many different aspects you have to look at something when you're portraying it, which is visually visuals and audios is the two, but then there's subcategories for those. The visuals being like pretty straightforward, that's largely one thing, just what it looks like is pretty much you can sum it up as, although you can split it into art and animation. Audio is music and VA work, also sound effects. Like all of those, when she goes crazy, like you need, when all of those, I guess if you count the subcategories together, 5 things. When all 5 of those things are in sync for an impact scene, that's when the shivers happen. That's when you get the chills up your spine. And that's exactly what happened, at least for me, when, Demon Ogre happened, because all that shit was, like, firing on all cylinders, all 5 of those categories, for, like, the delivery of that. Like, that's when it's the director, like, knowing his shit, and, someone commented on the videos of, when we talk about ReZero, that the director was really passionate about ReZero when he was reading up on, the source material, so it's apparently a passion project, which comes across pretty fucking clearly.
Yeah.
So, like, it's almost one of those things. Like, passion projects there's exceptions, but passion projects usually turn out very well because there's a lot of effort put into them, and so they look well. Like my Toradora video is like one of the best videos I've done because I put so much fucking work into it. I don't doubt. Although, I mean, obviously Toradora is really popular, so that helps because, for example, Pokemon's blowing it out of the water because it's fucking Pokemon, but
slightly.
It's when you're passionate about something that gets across to the audience. The problem is when passion projects don't convey that passion to the audience, that's when they fail. Otherwise, they're almost guaranteed to succeed because no matter what kind of crazy shit you do, that passion will pull your audience in and they'll be willing to buy what you're doing. Like, I don't know what I was going to add to that. That's pretty straightforward, but yeah, I mean, and you covered all the other little aspects of the episode that were really nice to see that they mentioned. I thought that was actually interesting that they kind of actually brushed off the whole barrier thing. Like apparently the village had like a barrier, like a magic barrier set up to protect them, which I guess maybe just be part of the world itself. But the fact that that they have this magic barrier with all these crystals and it's almost like institutionalized to the point of like street lights are, is like interesting to see. Like again, learning a bit more about the world without the show like straight up being, telling you things. So that was interesting to see too. Other than that, it seems like the arc will be ending in the next episode or two. Actually, I could say that if I had to give a negative for this episode, and it's not even really a negative, it's just kind of a neutral thing, it's that the cliffhanger for this episode was actually really weak. Like, I do want to know what happens next, but at the same time, like, I already know Subaru's not dead. Like, there was no blood anywhere, really. Like, maybe that was just an accident and there was supposed to be blood. Maybe they ran out of time, but like, it seems pretty obvious that Subaru was not killed by the evil dog things. He's probably pretty weak. He's probably injured and probably, like, helpless, but he just seemed like he passed out, maybe. Like, it doesn't seem like he's in any danger of dying, which seems like what the cliffhanger was possibly going for. It was probably the best place they could end the episode, but it was just a little weaker than their usual cliffhangers, which are usually been fucking 10 out of 10. Because there are cliffhangers where, like, for example, there's cliffhangers where it feels like the episode just kind of ends, and then there's cliffhangers where it feels like it was an intentional, like, usually the good cliffhangers are where you learn something, but it gives you a bunch of questions as a result. Like, those are the good cliffhangers. Whereas this was just sort of like, did he die? Who knows? So it's like, it's obvious that he's not dead. So if anything, I'd say it was a bit of a weak cliffhanger, but that doesn't stop the rest of the episode from being, like, fucking great. And I mean, I still do want to know what happens, even if he's not dead. Like, him being dead isn't the big question. It's, what are they going to do after this point, now that he's not dead? So it'll be interesting to see, especially because he's not in her demon ogre state anymore. So maybe cavalry will arrive, hopefully, because Red mentioned she was going to go see if Beatrice was going to corroborate Subaru's story. So maybe she'll come out and help, although that would leave Amelia alone, although maybe Amelia will show up too. We completely didn't cover, we don't have time to cover it, but we also didn't cover another thing about the world, information building without telling you things, although this is more of a mystery aspect than just telling you something, is that Roosevelt left the mansion, and he's never done that before, and we don't really know why. The obvious guess would be that that Subaru's earned his trust, so he's willing to leave Amelia in his hands. Yeah. But it's not guaranteed. That's just speculation. There's no confirmation of why Roosevelt left the mansion. And then even if that's the reason, we don't know who he's going to meet. So there's that aspect that we have, like, we don't even have time to cover. Like, so I just wanted to mention that yes, that was something that was in the episode and was seen, but no real time to cover it. Not to mention it would be just speculation anyways. There's not really enough information at this point. Maybe the next 2 episodes we'll figure out a bit more, but that's an aspect that's also up in the air that we need to learn more about. But was that everything you wanted to cover up with the episode, Lewis?
Yeah. Kobayashi
so then,
Yusuke is the
Kobayashi
actor.
Yusuke is his VA work. What did you check out any other characters he's done?
He done Arslan in Arslan Senki.
Oh yeah, I think I actually remember looking that up when I looked him up the first time I was thinking about him doing a good job as Subaru. Is that he did Arslan, which is weird. I mean, Arslan's pretty good too, but it's largely a static role. Like, Arslan doesn't do too much in the show, so it's not like there's a whole lot of variation there.
The only other notable character he probably has, well, to me anyways, is what's his face, Okuma in Shimonetta.
Okuma was the main character, right?
Yep.
Yeah, there was a bit of work there. Now that I think about it, Okuma's little, like, outbursts actually do kind of sound a bit like Subaru.
It does, really, yeah.
Yeah, so that actually does fit a bit. So, yeah, it was still a good choice for VA stuff, but we should move on to Bungo Stray Dogs. We'll cover it a little bit. I don't want to cut us too short because there's probably some stuff to talk about, but what do you think of this week's episode of Bungo Stray Dogs, Lewis?
I'm gonna try and be brief anyways. Basically, it was interactions with Dazai and I really should remember his name by now, Atakuagawa.
It's like Akutagawa, I think.
Yeah. They're kind of like back and forth, I guess, like just doing like little jabs at each other, sometimes literal jabs. That was great to watch. Well, Dazai in general, no matter what he does, is just fantastic to watch. What else? Kyoka is, for being established in like the last episode, I think this is just a general thing within Bungo Stray Dogs, though, of how like they're great at just establishing characters in like one episode. Kyoka really did a good job of not being overbearing, but still being kind of like impactful in this episode, which is interesting because usually when they try to make make a new character feel like actually have like a lot of weights to them and make them like try and make to garner sympathy from the audience, it usually falls flat, really, because they're just introduced like an episode ago. Why should I care about these people? But they did it in a really, really nice way of being kind of like, she was basically just a puppet of a pre-existing character that we all know and hate, I guess. She was established very, very well. And her entire ordeal with like I guess that internal crisis with Atsushi, with Kunikita saying like you only have room for one in your boat, add any more and you'll sink. Like, that entire line was great and perfectly summed up his situation, really. It was a good episode, and it felt like there was a lot of progress that was made, and there was a lot of things that like a lot of loose ends that ended on that kind of have to be answered. I'd imagine like that thing within Dazai and orange haired dude, I forget his name. That's obviously gonna probably lead into something. Maybe it'll actually show Dazai finally get beaten. Probably not, but who knows. But yeah, no, a lot of things happened this episode, and it wasn't necessarily a transitional episode like Academia was, but this episode was just, it was a nice character, not slow paced, but it was very character driven like all episodes, so nothing new there. But yeah, it was a good episode.
Yeah, I'd agree on that front. I like the episode a lot. I think the thing you mentioned about the character presentations of the characters being really well done is, it's hard to say because this is based off source material, but I do think Igarashi's directing is a large part of the character portrayals being so well done, because like I mentioned, like he did Star Driver, and the character interactions in that were fucking great, and that was original source material. So I mean, part of it could have been Enakito's writing, but I feel like Igarashi just has a really good grasp on how to direct like characters and how like to portray their personalities and situations to the audience, because it's like there's a lot going on actually in this episode as far as characters. Like you have how do I word this? It's kind of actually hard to word, but there's the obvious like kind of like blunt, clear front of like our main character is helping Kyoka do this partially because that's just his character. He's a nice guy, but also because it's very obvious he sees himself in Kyoka. Like the fact that they are both like, they were just picked up by different agencies, really. Like, it's clear that they're both, like, alone in the world outside of the people that pick them up. And so he wants to help her in that regard, which makes their, like, bond, like, strong right there. Again, reference to Kabaneri, learn a thing or two. But, that's part of what was so strong about the thing in Bungo Stray Dogs. But the great thing is this doesn't just end there. He's also being a bit selfish. Because he mentioned at the beginning, like, when Kunikida's telling him to leave the girl alone, just turn her over, he mentions, what does that mean for Dazai when he was willing to help me out? So he's almost helping her as, like, a way to validify his current existence in the way he is now. Like, and it's actually a really clever thing that they did there. Like, there's, like, multiple fronts on, like, the interactions that they're doing. And then also the fact that, like, which is why it's so much more impactful when Kyoka says to turn her into the police station, because not only does he want to help her because of being a nice guy, but also the whole selfish angle. Like, there's he really doesn't want to do it. And then even not just the characters, but the directing in general is also great in Bungo Stray Dogs. I mentioned Igarashi's also really good at impactful tonal shifts, which I feel like was extremely well done when Akutagawa shows up out of nowhere and fucking skewers our MC. And then everything goes from there. I mean, there was the obvious little like spooky blood on the doll that the Kyoka has, but I mean, it's kind of it's been done in other stuff before, but it was still impactful. I feel like because it was it's just a perfect example of like a tonal shift, like with the blood on the stuffed dolls. Like this just happened. It's a way to establish atmosphere and tone very well, which worked because of everything that had happened leading up to that, and it wasn't because. I feel like I'd be annoyed if it was like bright and bubbly up until that point, because it would have been, well, it probably still would have been impactful, but it would have been a little jarring almost. But the fact that she wanted to turn herself into the police and they were having like a little heart to heart and then it happened was like, which made it work really well, I think. Other than that, like you mentioned, Dazai's interaction's great with Akutagawa. Like the power, balance there is really interesting to see, because Dazai's chained up and Akutagawa, especially at the start of the conversation, is like, speaking like he has the upper hand, but very quickly Dazai turns it on him, and it's very clear that Dazai is actually in a situation of power despite being captured. So, like you mentioned, their interactions are fucking great. Moro Yamano in general has been doing great as Dazai. Like, he's doing a couple characters this season, but I feel like Dazai's the one he's been doing the best on. Like, he's been really going at it. So, that's been really good. I don't know what else to mention. We got to see a bit more of the detective agency's president. We don't know too much about him other than like the sheer impact he has on all of his employees. Also, the fact that he was able to bribe Rampo with praise. So, I don't know if that speaks as far as, like, how much his praise means or how shallow Rampo is. So, it could be both.
Yeah.
So, there's that front. But, I think that's, like, it bullet point-wise, like, to cover this episode, because we don't really have the most amount of time. But, I don't mean to cut you short, though, if there's anything else you want to cover. Was there anything else you want to cover this episode that wasn't mentioned yet?
I was just gonna mention that it's kind of funny that you brought Mama Rihanna's performance. That like he sounds so energized in this. Bringing it back for one last comparison to Kabaneri, he sounds immensely bored at Kabaneri.
I don't know. Like after it's kind of hard to ever call Mamoru Miyano's performances bored after Magical Warfare, and we got to see him actually being bored in a role. So it's kind of hard to say that. He's definitely going for the more menacing, low-key thing. It's just, I feel like it seems boring because he's doing the, you know, kind of like almost bubbly, happy, energetic Dazai, and then his fucking BB, I still don't know, I think that's his name, in Kabaneri is much more like low-key and menacing. So it just seems boring in comparison, but I would say that's not actually the case. I'd say it's actually going for more low-key and like menacing, but that's just Kabaneri. Like, I mean, it's not like Mamoru Miyano can't do menacing. Like, he was fucking light, so he can do it. It's just, I think we're just used to seeing him being, you know, the crazy and energetic characters, or like the really flamboyant characters. Like, those are the ones he's been doing a lot lately. He's been doing the serious characters a lot less. So it's just a weird contrast, I would say. I don't think he's actually bored in that show that I can't remember the name of, Kabaneri. I'm already forgetting Kabaneri. But yeah, I mean, personal preference wise, I like his more energetic and flamboyant characters more, sure, but I wouldn't say that Kabaneri performance is boring. But, yeah. But was that it? The performance was the only thing you wanted to know about the episode? That was it? Okay. So that'll do it. This is probably the longest episode we've recorded yet. I didn't expect us to take this long to talk about Kabaneri, but that's fine. I mean, Kabaneri is the most popular show this season, so that's fine. A couple people mentioned in my ReZero video, actually, that like when I mentioned ReZero not being as popular as Kabaneri, people mentioned that the rankings are higher, and like for example, I don't know if they mentioned the ANN threads, but like Reddit threads for ReZero have been bigger than Kabaneri and stuff like that. But my only statistic I went off of for the most part, other than just general talk, was Mal ratings. I wasn't just talking about the ratings. I was also talking about viewership. There's more people watching Kabaneri than ReZero, which I think is bad. Like, not every show will appeal to everyone, but I want a lot of people to watch ReZero because I feel like there's a lot of people that aren't watching ReZero because they just made assumptions about it that would like ReZero if they watched it. So that was why my video wasn't called why ReZero should be higher rated than Kabaneri. It was why people should be watching ReZero, because more people should be watching it. So I don't even remember how I started on this tangent, but I think I was just going to mention that I don't actually hate Kabaneri that much. I've mentioned it a couple times. Kabaneri is largely entertaining. I will actually admit that this episode actually made me start not liking the show that much, but for the most part, it's been entertaining enough. Like, I don't have any urge to drop it, really. It's just that there's so many other shows doing things right that Kabaneri isn't, yet Kabaneri's getting, like, all this praise in a lot of, like, other shows other than, like, you know, a couple threads in, like, the corners of the internet. Like, people aren't really watching those other shows, and it's a shame, because it shows exactly, you know, how things should be done that Kabaneri isn't doing well. So, it's just a contrast thing. Like, I mean, we'd still mention these problems even if Kabaneri was, like, the only thing we were watching, but it just amplified a bit more because there's other shows that are doing these other great things and more people should be watching them as opposed to Kabaneri.
Yeah. I agree completely. Yeah.
Pretty much. Maybe not instead of Kabaneri, but in addition to Kabaneri. More shows. Get more material to contrast shows, like, you know, as far as like how to do things well or not. Like, the best way to learn like how to do different things in regards to especially writing and directing is to watch a bunch of shit and then see what works and what doesn't, or watch it, like it or not, and then figure out why you like it or don't like it, stuff like that. And anyways, we're going off on a little bit of a weird tangent. We should close this episode because it's already long as fuck. So do you want to plug yourself, Lewis?
Twitter, Doratory, blah blah blah.
Yeah, you already know. It's fucking Lewis's Twitter. I already put it in the description for all the videos at this point, so who gives a shit?
Thanks.
So, that's it for this week's episode of Saturday Morning Ramblings. So, hopefully my computer doesn't fucking explode from this heat wave while I render this. So that'll be fun to see. I think that's it. So see you guys next week.
Bye.